Before we apply textures to our mech, we need to have UVs. And ZBrush has some really quick and effective UV tools that serve our purpose perfectly. And what I'm going to do is UV just what's displayed here, because the rest I'm going to do off camera. It's going to be repetition, but most of what I am going to be covering will be enough to cover all the different techniques and workflows of UVing in ZBrush. So first we're going to start out with the hull. And before I apply the UVs or UV the hull, I just want to do one last thing here, and that is apply the noise. So the surface noise, remember, we had it on, and it's been on the entire time that we've been sculpting on it. But at this point, it's time to accept it into our geometry. So what I'm going to do here is apply it to the mesh. But I don't want it to be applied to the entire mesh. I want it to be applied to the outside surfaces, but not the cavities. So I'm going to mask the cavities by going into the masking menu in the tool menu. So the masking subpalette over here. And then go down to mask by cavity. And basically the blur is how blurry the mask is on the edges. 2 is fine. And the intensity is how the intensity of the mask, and 100% is fine as well. And then the cavity profile is how the masking happens. So over here to the left is the kind of the cavities of the model, and then over to the right is the high points. And then I want the masking to happen along this curve. This is just the default, so I'm just going to accept that and see what kind of result I get. And as you can see here, the cavities of the model, these inside parts, are masked. If I want that to be a little bit more, I can raise this curve a little bit and hit it one more time. And now I've got what I need. And so I'm good with that at this point. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and go to surface and just apply the noise to the mesh. So notice now this button is no longer pressed, it's no longer applied, and the actual surface noise has been added to the object but not to the masked areas. And if I clear the mask, I can see that the inside parts don't have that surface noise, which is exactly what I wanted. Okay, so now that I've got this established, let's go ahead and get to UVing this part. To create the UVs, we're going to use the plugin that comes with ZBrush, the Z plugin called UV Master. But before I do that, I want to establish the seams within which the UVs will be cut. So to do that, I'm going to go back to what we did earlier, which you probably have been asking yourself, why did we do that? And so here's the reason. Remember when we poly painted our model with these colors? So what we're going to do now is we're going to use this poly paint to generate polygroups, and then we're going to have the mesh be separated out by these polygroups. So here's the process. So first thing is we just need to make sure that these polygroups, or this poly paint is on the edges of where we want the cuts to be. And it looks like here we had a little bit of bleeding because maybe we changed some of this around. So let's go ahead and go back to paint here and pick this color and just do a little tiny bit of cleanup over here and color this area this color. And then maybe pick this green and clean this area up. It's better when we're zoomed in. And again, it doesn't have to be super clean, but we definitely do want to have the established lines here between where the separation is going to be, at least as good as we can get it. And let me go back to this blue over here and paint this area back in. Right, and yeah, so that's good there. And then let's pick this top color, which is a different blue, and fix up some of this area over here. And yeah, so for the most part, I think this is good enough. And at this point, what we want to do is we want to polygroup our subject matter. Oh, wait a minute, I kind of need to, I made some design changes here, so why not color these in as well. And again, this doesn't really have to be very precise. It just basically has to show where the different separation areas are of the different pieces. So I'm just going to fill this in as well, like so. Okay, and then once we're done with this part, then what we need to do is we need to polygroup this object based on these poly paint, based on the poly paint information. So if I hide the poly paint, you'll notice that my object here, or this mech, just has one poly group. And let me turn polyframe on and maybe choose a lighter color so you can see it better. So you can see that this is all entirely one poly group, and what I want to do is I want to separate this out into poly groups, but I want to use the poly paint as the guide. Okay, so here what I'm going to do first is go down to the lowest subdivision level. So I'm at the lowest subdivision level. I'm going to turn polyframe on here, and even though you see the coloring here, this is all poly paint, and what I want is polygroups where that poly paint is. And I don't really care about the seams being precise, but I just want a basically a UV shell for every single one of these pieces, and I think that'll be okay, and then UV Master will flatten those out, and we should be okay to go with that. So here, in order to do that, I'm just going to go down here to Polygroups in the Tool menu. And under Polygroups, there's an option that says Polygroup from Polypaint. And to do that, all we need to do is just click on this button. The only thing that you can change is this P tolerance. And that basically is the number of different shells you want, or color shells. So here I'm just going to put this as 0.5. I think the default is 0.1 or 0.2, I don't remember, but I'm going to put it at 0.5 because I want at least 5 different poly groups. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So from Polypaint, and this is the result that we get, and it looks good enough for now. It looks like it's okay. And I can, of course, go in here and make some changes, which I will do. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and hide the poly paint so I can see the different poly groups that it's done here. And it looks like it's added a few that I didn't really want, but I think it'll be okay. And also, I'll go ahead and do a few edits just to kind of make it more conforming. And so to do that, we'll just go over to the subtool here and go under Geometry and freeze the subdivision levels. So what that will do is it will basically hide all the higher subdivision levels, and then here we'll go ahead and go into ZModeler tool. And in the ZModeler tool, let's go ahead and for the edge say do nothing, and for the vertex say do nothing. But for the polygon, what we want to do is we want to polygroup. So here I'm going to do two things. I'm going to absorb the color of the polygroup and then apply it to other areas. So it looks like it created some weird polygroup here for me, which I don't want. So I'm going to click on this polygroup right here, and if I hold the shift down, it will absorb that color, and then I can start applying that color to these different areas. So I think I want to apply this yellow polygroup to these areas over here. So I'm just individually clicking on the different polygons, and it is coloring them for me in that color. Okay, so that's good. And then over here on this side, I want to color this one, this bluish color. It's okay over here, but on this side it's not. So again, if I just click over here and click Shift, it will absorb that polygroup color. And so let me do that again, Shift, click, and apply that over here as well. And I think here I'm going to apply it to this row as well. And I can do these for poly loops as well and other types of constructs, but I think this is okay. So here I'm just kind of going in and choosing some polygons that I want to have be this color. Okay, I think that's good, and then let's just make sure it's the same on the other side. It is. Okay, so now we'll go on to, I'm going to absorb this yellow color again, and I think over here, this one I'll make yellow, so it's kind of a little bit symmetric. And I don't need to be super accurate with this, but I mean, like areas like this I definitely need to fix. So here I'm going to absorb this polygroup color and just make sure it's the same on both sides and not a completely different color. I think it got a little bit confused of the different blues. And I could have chosen a smaller P tolerance number and gotten a more accurate result. But this process just takes a little bit of time, and I'm glad it happened, so I actually can go through the different processes here to get the results that we need. Okay, so that's good. And then it looks like there's a bit of a mess over here, so I'm just going to absorb this yellow color and just go in and paint these different polygons to the yellow poly group. Okay, there's that. And let's see here, there's a few stray ones over here. It's always good to check both sides. Yep, that's good. And then I'm going to absorb this color right here and make sure that I've got this in that color. Absorb the yellow again, and there we go. Just make sure they're both the same. Absorb this color. I think there's a couple of stray ones over here. Fix that. And I think for the most part it's good. And I can always mirror and weld this, but I don't want to mess with the sculpting, so I'm going to leave it be. And then over here I've got a yellow and a green, so I think this color is what I need over here. I don't need that weird. It just added a weird one over here. And this could be because maybe the poly paint was a little bit of a different color there, but now we fix that. And then let's do this front part. It looks like it looks okay for the most part. Absorb this color. And I think I want all this to be this color right here, like so. And absorb this one. And I just want to make sure there aren't just too many colors or weird colors. And one of the things I can also do here under polygroups, that would be a good thing to show also, is under polygroups you can always click on merge stray groups, so that if there's like a group that's one pixel someplace, that it will go ahead and, or one polygon someplace, it will go in and kind of conform that to the rest. Okay, so I'm just kind of doing a quick look around just to make sure we've got what we need here. And I think this separation is actually not too bad. And at this point I'm okay with it. So let's go ahead and UV this. So I'm going to go ahead and extrapolate this polygrouping to the rest of the mech. So before I do that, let me just do a quick save. And also go in here and go under geometry and click off of freeze subdivision levels, and that will bring all the rest of the subdivisions back, all 7 million polygons. I think I said 73 million polygons somewhere in this video, but it's actually 7 million polygons, just this hull. And it is a lot, and I could probably break this up into separate pieces, but ZBrush will handle this very easily, and so will KeyShot, so I'm not too worried about that for now. Okay, so now we're basically just getting the different mapping things coming in. So this is remapping everything back, and it looks like it's going to take about 33 seconds. So I'm just going to go ahead and pause the video, come back when it's done. Okay, so now we have all of the polygroups applied to the high-res mesh. And it looks like I could have made some changes over here too, but I think for the most part it looks okay. And I'll go ahead and bring up the poly paint. The poly paint is good. And then we do have the polygroups, so this is pretty much done. And now I want to go back to the lowest subdivision level. So here I'll go back to 1. Okay, and let's bring the polygroups back. And what I want to do at this point is go ahead and UV it. So just go to UV Master over here. And what we want to do is we want to unwrap this. We want it to be symmetric, and we also want to use the polygroups, and we just go ahead and click on the unwrap button, and that will take a few minutes, and it's basically done. So it created 10 islands, and it did it in 1.5 seconds, or 1 minute and 50 seconds, or 1.5 seconds, sorry. Okay, so at this point, if we want to see what those UVs look like, we go to UV Map and click on Morph UV. And here are the different shells, and that looks pretty okay. I mean, there is a little bit of a discrepancy here in the symmetry, but I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. But to test this out, what we need to do is add a texture to it. So here I'm going to go back up to the highest subdivision level, go back to level 6. And the UVs, of course, will apply to all the subdivision levels. And now that I have that, I'll go ahead and go into Texture Map here and choose this texture map right here. okay, which basically has a bunch of squares and letters on it, and I can just go around my model. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for the least amount of deformation in the squares. And there's a little bit of it over here, but it doesn't really matter that much because there'll be other parts there. And for the most part, all the squares are the same size. So this is actually pretty good. And one more thing I want to do here is also unwrap it in this view, so I can see what the unwrapping is going to look like. And here it is. So I'm actually just going to go back down to the lower subdivision levels so I can actually see. Let me turn Morph UV back on here, because I forget that I can't change subdivision levels while I'm in Morph UV mode. Here we go. And bring this back down to level 1. And the reason why I just did that is because when I do Morph UV, I can actually watch it unwrap, so I know what's where. And it looks like most of the flat parts that I have are good. So like it didn't create a seam in the middle of these parts, which is not as desirable, but I could have also seen that just by visually looking at it. But for the most part, this is the process. So now I've got UVs for this part, and I'm ready to get to the next one. For the leg, I'd actually had combined it into one object. So what I'm going to do here is go ahead and create a new folder and just call it rear leg, and place this in that rear folder. And then I'm just going to go ahead and split this to similar parts. And the reason why I did that is to keep everything in a folder. That's the reason why I added the folder. So now I can just go ahead and start individually unwrapping these pieces. So I'm going to turn polyframe on and take a look at these pieces here. And it looks like I've got some polygroups already, but I don't really know if I want to polygroup or unwrap it based on what's there. So I'm going to use a different trick here for this one. And that is by using polygroups by normals. So that basically will look at the different angles of this object and polygroup it based on that. So groups by normals is here, and it's got one option, which is the maximum angle. And let's go ahead and see. I'm going to leave it at the default, which is 45, and let's do it that way. So at 45, I can see that it didn't really do what I wanted it to do, so then I can start bumping this number down. So I'm going to go all the way down to 15 degrees and do it again. Still not getting what I want. Let's go down to 10 and see if we get what we want. Okay, so polygroups by normals. Still not getting what we want. Let's go up. Let's go down to maybe 5 and do it that way. And that worked. Okay, so at 5 degrees, basically what that did is it separated these pieces out into different polygroups. And another thing I could do here is I could say merge similar groups, so that way all the similar groups will be the same color, more or less. And then with that done, I can do the exact same thing I did before. Just go to UV Master, make sure polygroups is on, click on Unwrap. Okay, and that almost takes no time to do it. And here I'm doing this at the high subdivision level, so it might take a few more seconds than before, and it is done. Okay, so now if we want to see what that looks like, we go to UV Map and Morph UV, and this is the UVs that we get, which is okay. And then again, to do that texture map test, we go to texture map and apply texture 19, and just take a quick gander, and that looks just fine. Okay, so we've got that. Let's move on to the next subtool over here, which is this over here. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure that this has just one polygroup on it. And I'm going to do the exact same method. Just go down to polygroups here and do group masked, or I'm sorry, group by normals. And 45 is the default. That didn't work. So again, go down to maybe 15. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, so that does give me some groups. Maybe I need to go up. It gave me way too many groups. I don't need that many. So let me go to about maybe 20. See what that looks like. And it's funny because between 20 and 15 is what we need. So let's try 17 and groups by normals. And that's kind of okay, but not really as good as we like. So again, I'm going to take matters into my own hands here and use the zero mesher. So let's make sure we're on polygroup, absorb this group, and then just color these ones. Let's do a merge stray groups here so that if there's some weird groups in places, then they'll get merged, and that happened. So here I'm just going to go ahead and paint. I can do this one polygon at a time, and I'll just do that for these ones. And I'll show you the other way of doing it, which is going into here and polygrouping by brush radius. So here I can just do big swaths of it. Now the problem with that is kind of keeping it just to where you want it to be, but after a little bit of practice it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and combine all these. So I'm basically just painting UV seams by using polygroups here. Another nifty trick is to polygroup by flat island, and that will do like a flat piece like this, so you can get a lot of it done in a very quick way this way, and then just go clean it up with a single poly, and just I can also probably do polyloop here too. So I'm going to do polyloop. Let's see if this goes all the way around. It seems like it cascades around, so maybe am I going the right direction? Yeah, so I'm just going to go back to single poly here and just choose these polys right here, and so that's where it's going to cut a seam for me. And pretty quick process. I don't know why the polyloop option didn't work, but that's fine. It only takes a couple of seconds. So that's done, and then it will cut the other piece for me too. So with that, I'll just go ahead and click on unwrap, and let's go ahead and take a look at what has happened by going into UV map first, morph UV, and it looks like it divided up into these parts, which is fine. And with the new version of ZBrush, it actually has the bump included in the UV, so this does not look completely flat. But if you reduce the bump to 0 and redo this, then you basically get that flat UV. Let me do that one more time. And so now it's completely flat, and it's exactly what we want. One last thing to test it out, which I'm sure is going to be fine, is to go ahead and apply texture 19 to it and take a quick look. And that looks pretty clean. Okay, so we're done with that part. And I'm going to go ahead and go to the next one. The next one is this one right here, which is going to be similar, so I'm going to skip it, go to this one. And this one already has polygroups, so I'm just going to go ahead and unwrap it, and that basically will do the job for me. I don't even need to do the morph UV. I think if I just apply the texture to it over here, texture 19, I can see that that's fine. So let's move on to the next piece. Sometimes you get pieces that are a lot easier. So this is very similar to this one that we did earlier, so I'm going to skip that one too and just do it off camera. And then we get to this one over here, and this has two polygroups on it already. So what I'm going to do here is just have it be one polygroup, and I'm doing that by just clicking on auto groups or group visible. Either one of those does that. And I'm also going to group this by normals. So a normals at 45 doesn't do anything. So let's go ahead and try 15 here, group by normals, and that's okay. I think I could probably get better results by doing polygroup and flat island on this one. So here I can just do the top in one shot. And let me just cycle through different polygroups here. That color is good. So I'm just picking different areas. So that's good for one polygroup, and then maybe do this one. So as you can see here, I'm just doing a plane at a time, and it's pretty fast. It's a lot easier than cutting seams in other programs. And again, this is going to be quick and dirty UVs. I'm not really going to be worried about making very efficient ones for now. And let's go ahead and switch to polyloop here and polyloop this, but choose a different color, maybe that. Do the same thing here, do the same thing here, and I think we have what we need here. So I'll just go ahead and unwrap at this point, and let's go ahead and do a morph UV on this one, see what it looks like. Okay, and again, remember, you're seeing geometric shapes because the bump is on, so if I turn bump off, I will get the UVs to be flat, and that's good. And let's go ahead and put texture 19 on there to see what that's going to look like. And it looks perfect. So that's how you do a piece like this. And I'll keep moving down the list. Here's this one right here, and this one's going to be pretty interesting to do. And for that, I'm just going to use a similar technique. So let's go ahead and see what auto groups does, or group by normal does. See if we get a good result there. So we got a bunch of different groups here. And that's a good start, but I think I can do better. Let's go ahead and maybe decrease that number to, let's go to 25. Let's see what that looks like. And 25 gives us something a lot more along the lines of what we need. It's having a problem with the sphere on top, so I have to do that manually, and I will do that by using polygroup, polyloop, and let's see what this gives us. Okay, there's that, and now I want to polygroup this inside part. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and choose polygroup island, and now I got that. And I think for the most part this is what I need. So let's go ahead and see what happens. I'm going to unwrap this, and let's go ahead and see what that looks like with Morph UV. Again, I'm going to reduce that bump down to 0, and I get this result, which seems to be okay. And let's go ahead and see what that looks like with a texture map applied to it. Again, texture 19, and take a close look, and it looks like everything is pretty much evenly distributed. There's no warping or anything like that, so I think we are good with this piece. So let's move on to the next pieces, which are these ones right here. So these pieces are CAD pieces, and CAD pieces are a little bit more difficult, but not too bad. And what I recommend you do with CAD pieces is, the first thing is make sure that the geometry is sound, because if it's not, then ZBrush will crash. So what I usually do first before I UV these is go to mesh integrity and do a check mesh, and it seems like they're fine, and then do a fix mesh, and it seems like that's fine as well. So now I'm going to use the same polygrouping technique by polygroup by normal. So polygroups, groups by normal again, and I'm going to merge similar groups. I think I could probably break this out into more groups than what it did. So I'm going to decrease the angle to, let's try 15, see what that does. Groups by normals, and I think that is a lot better. And I'm going to do two things here. I'm going to merge stray groups, and I'm also going to merge similar groups. Let's see how many different groups I get. It seems like there's a lot of different pieces here, so I'm actually going to up that number. So go to maybe 35 here, 35 degrees, and group by normal, see what I get. I think this is exactly what I want right here. So I'm going to do the same thing, merge stray groups, and also merge similar groups. And I think that's okay. And let's go ahead and unwrap this, see what it looks like. So notice this takes a little bit more time, and again, if I hadn't checked the mesh, it could have crashed. So always make sure, if you are UV unwrapping CAD parts, do that check mesh and fix mesh. All right, so let's see what this came out with as a result. So we'll go ahead and Morph UV this. And you can see here I've got a lot of different little pieces, which I guess is okay. I mean, it really doesn't matter. I don't think we're going to even be putting anything on here. I could have even not UV'd this and applied just a single material to it, but I think it was kind of important for me to show you how to do some CAD parts, and we'll be doing a lot more of those when we get to the gun. Okay, so at this point we've mostly UV'd the leg. I'll just stop the video and UV those other parts that we had, and then after that we'll get to the gun.